because it is booked at 16:10, and so we'll start at 16:10, because nobody knows whether we should keep it all in check.
Yep.
But essentially already in advance, because I see the Tamhana diehards here, this talk is going to be pretty long. First, we're going to look at Qt on Android, and if we're done with that, we're going to go into Google TV and apps on TV. If apps on TV and Google TV is what interests you, you can go now. The next 40 minutes are not interesting for all those of you who have got very large existing Java property, because Qt is all C++. I'm telling you this honestly. You can stay here for the free chocolate, but if you've got a large amount of Java intellectual property, then you will not benefit much. So it looks good, the queues are filling. We were going over some modalities for all those of you who were during the break. First, it's going to be Qt on Android. Secondarily, it's going to be Google TV. So, with that, I'd suggest it's time we're going to start to look at Qt for Android. Who has ever been dealing with Qt before? Very good. I see the people wanting the chocolate. Who used Qt in a mobile scenario? So, the hands stay down. Well, Stephen Elop, Nokia's new hero and CEO, recently promised that there will be 1 billion devices you can reach with Qt. Well, currently you can reach 21 device types on Ovistore. But fortunately, we are here and we fulfill Elop's promise, 1 non-Nokia device at a time. First of all, you might ask yourself, who am I? I am Tamhana, the CEO from Tamogam Unlimited. And, well, our company, we run websites about mobile computing, and I also write scientific books. And because this is the beautiful homeland of Gerd Wilders, don't worry, I will fly back home straight tomorrow, even though I am a half Arab. Don't worry, I will fly home straight tomorrow. All those of you who don't believe me, hands up. Well, whoever it was. For all those of you who have not yet been dealing with Qt before, we're going to start by looking at what's Qt. Qt is a cross-platform framework. So you see here we've got Windows, we've got Unix, we've got macOS, we've got Android, Symbian, blah, blah, blah. And we've got a little wedge, which you see here. And this wedge is the API. And if my application depends only on this wedge, then I don't have to change the source code to run it on different platforms. All I have to do is a simple recompile. And this is the system we are using. It's going to be called Lighthouse. Lighthouse takes the abstraction level one level further by abstracting a window manager. Lighthouse essentially provides a window manager where the Qt widgets are rendered into, and all the native operating system has to do is it has to push the bitmap onto the screen. All those of you who are late, I hope I hit one of them straight on the head. Be on time if I'm talking. And now I hear some of you say, oh, what's this faggot talking about? You should go back to wherever he came from. Qt has got one really, really big benefit over native. The reason is a Qt application, once it's compiled, it's a native application. So you guys, you're dealing with native applications in your notebooks in the back. You can create such native applications using Qt, and they will not differ from a platform native application in any way. This is achieved via a system called QMake. QMake is called to create a makefile. And this makefile is then compiled directly by the platform. So for example, if you're using Android, the actual compile is done with the Android NDK. And if you are using, for example, Symbian, you can use GCCE and so on. The effect of this is that in the end, you've got a native application which is dependent only on the Qt libraries. you has ever licensed Qt? Okay, that's very sane. There are two ways to license Qt. Number one is LGPL, and number two is commercial. Usually, if there is somebody from Nokia here, I now pick him as an example to show why it makes very good sense to do LGPL. But because there is nobody from Nokia here, I'd say, this guy, come to stage, you look like a Nokia employee. Or actually, it's an insult. He doesn't look like a Nokia employee, but look really, really silly, and then you might go through as a Nokia employee. Okay, very good. And let's assume that I change something in the framework. Nokia, for legal reasons, must release a new version of Qt every 6 months. And if they break something, and it's my own secret code, they tell me, fuck you. But if I committed the code to their servers and they break it, then our Mr. Nokia gets locked in the sauna until he fixes the problem. And that can take very, very, very long. Thank you so much. Well, we are already in the area which is so sad that it's very difficult to find a slight background for it. Nokia as a company, essentially they are ill. Symbian was a great operating system. They killed it by being cheap on RAM. For Maemo and Mego, I'm not even going to comment, it's just insane. And regarding Windows Phone 7, well, that's not work in progress, that's a disaster in progress. Because look, there are 3 parties in the game. There is Microsoft, there's the sauna people whose brain is fleeing quickly away out of their head. And finally, there are the industrious and powerful Chinese. And the problem is this. Essentially, all Microsoft can do is threaten them with higher prices for Windows. They actually did this with Samsung in the past, or at least it is claimed that they did it. I cannot confirm it legally. But they tend to, that's all they can do. But, now it gets funny. On the other hand, Samsung can easily strike back by, for example, releasing a Linux notebook. If Nokia gets too much cuddling by Microsoft, out comes a Linux notebook. And believe me, the fuckers at Microsoft know very well that this gun pointed at their head is loaded. But this is not the only problem. In addition, the industrious Chinese can also lock the little fuckers in the sauna very easily because they control the manufacturing, they have the stronger carrier relations, and they can cross-subsidize dumping. So essentially, it does not pay to lock yourself in the sauna. To the guy who's photographing?
No.
I think I hit him in the balls.
It's a picture.
Of the comic, it's going to be uploaded to my website tomorrow or so. Please keep in mind, the brain is fleeing. You see, it must flee. The brain is desperate. It must flee from the sauna man. But, fortunately, the little sauna men have got very little to do with Qt. Because there is something, it's called the Free Qt Foundation. And this was established in the time when the KDE environment started to use Qt. And they basically told Nokia, either you release one update every 12 months, or you get a BSD release. This worked very well while Qt was still maintained by Trolltech. Now that we've got our friends from Nokia, we must do an update. You frequently get all kinds of compatibility issues, but that's another problem. The Qt project today manages Qt. It is a management foundation. That means that it runs the domains, it runs the CVS, it runs all the kind of junk you want to have running. But the Qt project does not make any strategical decisions. So essentially they get to decide things like maybe we want a new pink website theme, but the important decisions, the Nokia men, fortunately, have nothing to do with it. Instead, we get a system which is called open governance. This means that you've essentially got a little pyramid scheme. At the very bottom, there's the contributor. That's basically people like me, slaves, who code. And the slave, he codes something, and he contributes it. Then there is the slave, who is also allowed to be his sub-slaves, namely the approver. He approves it, and finally the maintainer is responsible for the whole package. And finally, a little surprise. Qt works on QNX. The Blackberries will in the future be based on QNX. This means that there will very soon be another new platform for Qt developers. Anybody of you ever used the Cascades framework? Who of you owns a playbook? Who would like a playbook? You people are a total bunch of idiots. It's the best device in the market, but it's a different question. Either way, please, one of you ask a question afterwards why the playbook is very efficient for software developers. But that's that. We're going to need to get to understanding the basics of Qt. The most important part of Qt, it is essentially the signal and slot system. Let's assume that I would have brought my wife here, and she would be wailing about how she is hungry. Who of you would give a fuck? Good, an antisocial batch. I like you people. Signals and slots, they are essentially callbacks, but done the Qt way. They are used for event processing, and the really cool thing about them is, at compile time, the signal slot macro chunk is transformed to C++. So the signal and slot system, it becomes all C++, which is compiled with a native compiler. And as I already said, a signal is emitted by a Q object, and it says something has happened. For example, if I take this beautiful piece of chocolate and hit somebody on his head, Bock, you see the guy in the back? His head emitted the signal, oh shit, a piece of chocolate is being thrown at me. And well, now there are multiple slots. There could be the slot, call Gerd Wilders, but well, it won't quite work because it takes too long. And alternatively, there is the slot, dodge. And all jokes aside, we are looking at a very powerful event multicasting system. You can connect signals and slots, and if the signal fires, all the slots get called, and in addition they can propagate to other slots. And these connections, they have to stick to some rules, which are basically just common sense, same number of parameters, blah blah blah. And this is a very important warning for beginners. The check occurs at runtime, because the slots are compiled to a group of strings at compile time. And the C++ compiler cannot check the content of the strings. And so this is very important. Whenever you use signals and slots, you must do some debugging. Debug your timing code, guy. You're too late for the most important presentation. And with that, it's time to look at the parts of a Qt project. Well, C++ is basically common sense, a source code file. If we look at a mock file, these are also C++ files. And they contain the glue which is used to keep together the signals and slots. But they are auto-generated. So it's very important. Under no circumstances should you upload them to your CVS. Because every time you recompile, the file changes. And your CVS, it literally breaks down. You've got 50,000 little files with 1 byte change each, and your CVS, it goes straight to hell. The next file are the .ui files. They are needed for what you see is what you get GUI, and they are compiled into UI headers at runtime. Important is also the .pro file. The .pro file, it lists the contents of all the project. So basically all the files which are part of the project are listed in the pro file. A question to all of you. Why do you need this list? 2 cubes of chocolate to whoever knows it. Hand delivered. They won't be thrown at you. You can't eat them. Anybody of you still remember mock? Mock creates native makefiles. And to create native makefiles, you need to know what you want to make. I want to make something, but I don't know what. But it's like a successful strategy. And then finally, there are the headers and the QML files, and that's essentially that. Someone threw one of them back. By the way, they are packaged, so even if they hit the floor, it doesn't matter. You can pick them up, throw them with somebody else, and eat them. Somebody's fleeing. Hey! Score! Almost. Now to the problem. Who of you thinks that the screens of all mobile devices are the same size? There's an idiot. Let me talking.
Oh, wait, I do.
Where's another idiot? Yes, but you must come to the stage for the interaction. Please, the idiot comes to the stage. I need you in a minute. The idiot comes to the stage. Come on. You please also. I need some victims. Applause for my victims.
Idiots.
Here are our two victims. These two victims, they are controls. Like this control and this control. You can imagine he's the label, he's the slider, or whatever. And now I am introducing to them spaces. A spacer is very simple to understand. It does this. I am the spacer, they are the controls. Stand like this.
Okay.
You will come to me. The spacer is this. You two, actually, you stink. Fuck off.
I can't.
And that's exactly the whole point. They squeeze the controls out of one another. And if I now put a rail into the squeezing, and I squeeze one of them into the border, that way I get a rigid control group, where the controls are kept together by physics. You must imagine it like a group of springs in a notebook, which keep the planar on the level. So essentially, if you resize and reduce the size of the form, or even change the size of the form, the Qt automatically adjusts the size of the controls. A big thank you to my two victims. Here comes chocolate victim number 2.
Oh, nice.
When it comes to slots, we already spoke about them before. It is very easy, as you see. You can create them in a graphical way, even on your machine. And here you see a slot. It is essentially a member function, but in addition, you give the qualifier slots to make mock understand this is a slot. And this signal on top here, this is a special macro, which tells mock, hey, you lazy bastard, this object, you better process it. And finally, that's the implementation for a simple slot. You see, it gets a parameter, it does some bullshit with the parameter, and it's done. In the next step, we could start out with looking at how to download Necessitas. This is a time when we better wake up, so I need some light, please. Who of you has a neighbor who is asleep, silently? Who of you has a neighbor who is asleep? Please check your neighbors if they are asleep.
No risk at all.
Nope. And please tweet, and photograph as much as you want. Don't worry, I'm not going to sue you guys. So feel free to tweet. I just got hit with a piece of chalk and I've got an ugly black scar on my forehead. Oh my goodness. I must vote the anti-Arab party next time. This guy is so dangerous. Well, if anybody of you wants to get Necessitas, you essentially need 3 things. A Linux distribution, an internet connection, and 20 gigabytes of hard drive. Necessitas today, there we got somebody sleeping. Didn't hit him, darn. Well, an internet connection and 20 gigabytes of hard drive. Necessitas today also runs on the Mac and it also runs in Windows. But the Linux version is the best maintained version and it becomes available the earliest. In the first step, you need to get Ant and the OpenJDK. Then you download the one-step installer. and you're essentially done with it. That's what you do. You run the one-step installer, and everything else is done for you. So you need to download Ant, download the OpenGDK, and follow these steps. Anybody has questions regarding to these steps? Who of you feels he cannot replicate the necessity installation process? Cowards. You know, I've got a virtual machine here, so if Vista would crash so much, I would ask one of you to come forward, but we can do it during the barbecue. And as, of course, as in most other platforms, you also can fine-tune Qt Creator for Android. And all fine-tuning, it takes place either here in the Qt settings, or, more importantly, it takes place in the advanced settings. We'll look at in a minute. But before, we must look one final time at how the Qt actually works on Android. If you start a Qt application on Android, you start a Java wedge. The Java wedge checks if there is the so-called ministro service on the device. If the ministro service is on the device, it checks if Qt is available or not, and then it essentially starts like a native application. Your Qt application essentially is an NDK application. That's very important in the next talk. And as I already said before, some advanced settings are available for your project. These advanced settings, you find them in the Projects tab. It's hard and it's illogical to find, but once Necessitas is running, you must click the Projects tab to get access to the advanced settings. And these advanced settings are, first of all, the manifest. You can target the specific SDK, version code, package name, blah, blah, blah. Secondarily, you can give your application a name and you can set the 3 icons, namely being small icon, medium icon, and large icon. There is no text there. I know I didn't code it that way. I'm also wondering. But trust me, on the left it's small, this one is medium, and this one is large. Then you can set up the permissions, and finally you can load external libraries and the Qt modules. Qt is made up of modules, and you need to include the modules which you want to use. And then finally there's deployment settings. Nobody really touches them unless it's crazy. And with that, it's time for some debugging. Debugging is still a bit unreliable due to an issue in the NDK. So the safest thing you can do is simply use Android 10 API level. So get yourself a Samsung Galaxy S2. It's a good reason to tell your boss, hey, I want that phone and no Nokia, yes? This one I want, no Nokia. And on the device, essentially all you have to do is you have to set the classic UDEF, persistent rules, and then debug. And as I already said, Qt for Android is an open source project. It's run by a Romanian guy. And the most important thing he asks you is don't deploy the apps on the market yet. The reason for this is the API between Ministro, the download server, and your app isn't stable yet. So if you install your app onto your phone or a client's phone, and we update the Ministro service, then your app stops working. So please do not deploy yet. In Alpha 2, we will bring you an easier installation process. In Alpha 3, which is the current state which we have, we now give you OpenGL support. And in the next beta, we will give you an Android GUI skin, an Android menu integration, Qt OpenGL, and some improvements in the compile process. And this is the point where I have to ask you guys, I need your help. Because we need a variety of contributors. First of all, we need translators. That's basically people who speak Danish, or who speak Finnish, or who, well, Finnish we don't need to translate, that's very easy. Sauna, sauna, beer, beer, sauna, 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 beer, sauna, sauna. But well, for all the non-Finnish people, we need translators. And in addition, we need the jerk keepers, who keep an eye on the idiots who come to our mailing list. And most importantly, we need slaves. Everybody of you looks like a slave. And you go to this website, you get yourself a ticket, and you fix it. And if the ticket has been fixed, then you find one of these things flying away. Oh, darn. These are the two URLs which you should picture. They are very, very important. This is the two bug lists where you can find work if you are of the lazily inclined. And because we already had so much to do, the light off please for a little visual tour. Who of you has a neighbor who is asleep? We're going to a visual tour today. What happens? Yes, that picture is just the idea of one of my employees. This is a V-tab. It's a completely strange tablet, but it's a tablet that can run Qt Creator. And so it was her idea, because I was like, girls, I need a picture. And she was like, I have an idea. And you know, it's feminism. So if a girl has an idea, it must be rewarded, no matter how stupid it is. The first thing we're going to look at is the end user's view. What happens if I send you an APK with an Android app and you run it? It tells you, usually it's in German for some strange reason, this application needs Minister. Do you want to give the permission to install Minister? And if you say yes, in the next step, the Android market is opened, and it's already pre-selected the Minister service. You click the Minister service, and you download it like any other application. You see, Minister mainly needs network communication, because it connects to our server, and downloads from our server the content and the libraries. Then, when the Minister service is installed, the application asks you, we need some extra libraries. These libraries, approximately 10 megabytes, are downloaded. And if that's done, the application can start up. And there are two commercial products from my company which I used as crash test dummies. The first was a jazz ball game, which is essentially, oh, somebody is returning. You see, the guy is smart. He who returns to the place of wisdom shall be rewarded.
I think you have to back that.
So I decided I removed the sound engine, and oh boy, this is the game on the Galaxy S2, this is the game on the Nokia phone. It looks pretty similar, doesn't it? If any one of you doesn't believe me, at the barbecue afterwards, we can test it. For games which mainly have custom-drawn user interface, the port is 100% complete, except for small issues like the message box. The message box is down, and here the message box is up. It's terrible. I have to cut open my veins and kill myself because it's such a terrible change. And unfortunately, the next app is a password manager. And a password manager uses native widgets. And you see with the native widgets, things look completely different. The soft keys, for example, there is no way to close the keyboard. This is still very much an area of work in progress, because sometimes your home screen looks like this while running an app. And finally, that's also very important, the menus are garbled. On a Nokia phone, the menus are shown grouped at the bottom with the soft key. In Android, you get them grouped in the top, so this still doesn't really work. And with that, it's time for some of the more practical porting gotchas. First of all, that's classic, where the people always fall on the snout, it's a definition. Especially if you have a Symbian programmer, he will define a C++ member function by prefixing the name of the class to the name of the function. If you do this under Android, the GCC compiler chimps. Secondarily, all file include paths in Qt are based on the path of the pro file. In Symbian, they are based on the location of the relative file. So if you have a file in a subfolder, then you must go out of the subfolder into the home folder and back into another subfolder. In Android, you just start like this. The next really classical issue is the includes. For a Symbian programmer, this and that is the same. If you compile on Linux, it isn't. Well then, there are also GCC gotchas, like for example you see here, the bracket, which is required. And finally, there are some specific ECAs, as we already said. For example, platform-specific code, platform-specific files, pro-user files, and soft keys. And with that, we're done with the first part, Qt on Android. I hope I gave you a little overview of what's possible with the platform. Don't forget, you can also target BlackBerry, you can also target iPhone soon. Currently, you can also target Android, Symbian, Memo, Mega, and of course the PC. It was a great pleasure, and I hope I get many questions. Every question gets one piece of chocolate hand delivered, so where come the questions? No questions? Darn. Good. I'm living under the assumption that you people are here for the other show.
One question.
Where is the question?
I still have chocolate, but it's fine.
Where's the question?
Yeah, they're good, by the way.
Oh, pleasure. Where is the question?
So how many Symbian applications do you think are there done on Qt basis who could immediately go through this and be delivered to the Android market?
It really depends on how your Symbian app is coded. As I already, it is a great question which you've posted. Basically, the law is this. The more Q widgets you use, the worse it looks for you. And a native game, like I showed you Balls. Balls, it's essentially rendering itself on a bitmap. It's a Jazzball clone. This, it ported, I ported literally. I was on the train, and I was on the way home, or rather, to my workplace. I was on from, I think it was, how is the station called? I think it was Utrecht to Amsterdam. When I came from Düsseldorf, from the plane, I had to take a train to get to Amsterdam, because Air Berlin doesn't fly here. And literally, in the little segment from Utrecht to Amsterdam, I was able to port this app easily. Whereas, on the other hand, other things, like the password manager, which I also showed before, I'm going to show it to you once again. If Outlook lets me show it to you once again, that is, wait a minute. Taman, Qt, slideshow, view. I will show you in a jiffy one of the applications where it's not so easy. This one, for example. I mean, what do you do if the user interface looks like this? It compiles, it runs, but the user interface looks like dog shit. So it's not so much a problem how many applications there are available. It's rather a question of how many applications can be really ported and are written in a way to be portable easily. But still, thank you very much. Where's the next question? Nobody of you has anything intelligent to say, anything intelligent to ask? Come on, there are so many of you. they're all asleep.